Hello, Doctor. Thank you for seeing me today.
Oh, no problem, no problem. How can I help you? What seems to be the problem?
Well, I've been struggling to come up with ideas for skits. I'm usually, really good. I usually don't have any problem. Sometimes I'll even have them done a few days in advance, but this week has been like a real struggle. I was just squeezing and I just couldn't get anything out.
Okay, let me have a look. We'll test here and have a measure here.
Oh, that's a bit tender there.
Okay, I think I see what the problem is. You are full of ideas.
Oh, that's good.
But I think you've been squeezing from the middle and not from the end.
Oh,
so you've got a lot down in the toes that you need to be squeezing from the end and sort of rolling up as you go to get them up to the top.
Okay, for once I guess I should have listened to my parents.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far.
Greetings, strangers queer and pleasant. I'm not Laura Kate Magnetdale.
And I'm not Jane Aerith Magnetdale. And welcome to another episode of Queer and Pleasant Strangers. It's a podcast with two queer trans women, that's us, but wifey types, have a bit of a silly catch-up about media we've consumed in the week, while trying to do silly voices and skits at each other. Just have a silly old catch-up.
Oh, nom, tasty media.
How are you doing?
I'm Sleepy Little Bean, how are you doing?
I'm Sleepy Little Bean too. I used up all of my brain working on a very silly thing, and I have nothing left in the tank. Apparently that was all the brain I had for the day was used up in like an hour and a half.
Now, were you squeezing from the toes?
I think that was the problem, is I wasn't squeezing from the toes, and now I know, but it's a little late in the day for me to get rolling the whole thing up and find the energy that's currently around my knees, I guess.
Ooh, energy knees.
Energy knees. Anyway, we played stuff this week.
We did. Do you want to tell us about a thing that you've played?
Sure. I don't think this had come out by the time we recorded last week. We've been playing a lot of Deep Rock Galactic Survivors.
Yes, we have. Quite a lot.
Yeah. I think this is the first week where we've been able to talk about it.
I mean, we briefly talked about the
demo.
The demo when that happened.
So this is like a Vampire Survivors. It's a sort of top-down, your weapons auto-fire in a specific pattern, try and kill off the waves of enemies that are trying to kill you kind of game. Based on Deep Rock Galactic, which is a first-person mining co-op game.
Yeah, space dwarves. Do a mining for various things.
But there's it's a pretty crowded field. The Survivor likes the Vampire Derivers.
Vampire Derivers, yeah.
There's a lot that I think this is doing well to differentiate itself. First of all, it's 3D, which very few of these are. 3D character models runs really well. I was dubious how well it would run on Steam Deck with 3D character models and hundreds of enemies swarming, but they've optimized it very well.
Seems like.
You have mining mechanics, which are pretty integral to. Sometimes they'll be for little sub-missions, sub-objectives going on. Sometimes they're to get resources that will help you buy stuff between stages. Sometimes it's just dig a tunnel to get away from the massive things following me that I'm not strong enough to kill yet.
Yes.
And I like that the mining is just automatic. You just put your character facing a rock and they start mining.
Yep.
And that it doesn't stop you shooting. You can be shooting while mining still in most cases.
Yeah, it obviously depends on the weapon. And I think that was a complaint they had a bit of during the initial demo. Because a lot of people... Well, there were so many complaints. It seemed to be weird. DRGC is always, legendary spoken of as having one of, the best communities. For any number of reasons. I guess mostly because it's a co-op, and I imagine that fosters a lot of goodwill between people. I think... It's weird that so many people have been like, I'm not happy with why is it single player? Why is it a derivers? Why can't you point where your bullets are going to go?
Because that's not the fucking genre. The genre is your bullets go where they go. Pick a build that suits where you want the bullets to go.
Well, I mean, there are games in this genre that do.
There are.
I think 20 Minutes Till Dawn have directable shots.
There's one Void Bastards? Void Scrappers, it might be the one where you're in the sky. Yeah, that one I think...
Void Bastards is the first person.
Yes, Void Scrappers, I think, the default is it will auto-shoot, but if you use your stick, it'll aim, and then you let go of the stick and it goes back to, auto-doing its targeting.
Yeah. Didn't Bone Razor have a thing where you could, oh no, I'm still thinking of 20 Minutes Till Dawn.
A few of them have, mechanics around that, but I I think it's very core to the genre to make this kind of choice.
Yeah, Halls of Torment. Halls of Torment has
yes.
directable,
Yes.
but you can set it to
Automated.
automated.
Yeah. But yeah, so I like some of the weapons that don't follow that core structure, particularly ones like the turrets where you have to stand still for a second to deploy them.
To deploy, yeah.
All of your weapons, it's not like Vampire Survivors where they have this weapon and this accessory and they combine and evolve. It's more at level 6, level 12, level 18, your weapons get like a big buff. And those big buffs, the level 18 one is a ridiculously big buff, so you can either sort of really spec into one thing or get a few big buffs across your sort of loadout. Mm-hmm. And you are going through like 5 depth layers, trying to do whatever the objective is, survive, get back to the ship, go further down, all towards a big dreadnought at the bottom.
Yeah, so the first 4 levels will follow the standard routine of there will be a number of swarm waves,
Yep.
which will be quite overwhelming initially.
Mm-hmm.
Then at some point there will be a drop pod, and as opposed to just calling a drop pod as you would in normal
Yeah.
Deep Rock, it's just on a timer. It will happen at this time,
And you have to...
it may end up in an area where there is some sort of debris in the area, so you have to clear the landing zone, and then it will and stand within the zone, and it will drop them, which is great for finishing off.
It is, if you
Chunks of
can
enemies?
survive long enough standing in the circle to kill a bunch of them with the drop pod coming in.
Yeah, I found quite an interesting one with that is like you could almost fill it, move out, sort of try and kite around, and then fill it back in the last little bit. Can work quite well sometimes. It's great. Like, there's been a couple of times where I've just, because I've been playing with the sound off, I've completely forgotten that the drop pods even happen, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm up to the boss at the end of the wave. I should really go and get that before the thing finishes. And generally speaking, I can drop the drop pod right on top of the boss, which will, for most bosses, finish it in one go, and that's good. And then you have stage 5, where you will have 3 eggs, and each of those eggs will contain what would normally be an end of stage boss.
Yep.
And then once you've defeated all 3, you can try and hang out for a little bit, but eventually, at the end of the timer, instead of a normal boss coming out, you're going to have a dreadnought. And the dreadnought has this whole attack pattern of, first of all, it will come find you, wherever you happen to be. It will basically, like do a little pose of, I'm about to do the thing, and then just launch itself towards you.
Yeah, so you have to sort of see the thing coming and have enough room to, like, take a 45-degree turn out the way.
Yes. So at that point, you really kind of want a decent amount of movement speed and a decent amount of mining power, because the quicker you can mine and make yourself an exit, the better.
Yeah. And there are currently 3 stages that have like different sort of environmental stuff going on with them.
3 different biomes.
You've got the basic biome, you've got a lava one, and you've got one with vines that regrow.
Yeah. So this is themed on the magma caves and the hollow bow levels from the base game, and I can't remember what the first one's based on.
But for each of these biomes, you have like 3 big objectives that help you unlock like more stages, more difficulty modes, etc.
Yes, so you got 5 hazard levels per stage.
Yep. So you can just keep turning the difficulty up on a particular stage if you've done it before, and you've got your sort of permanent upgrades between runs. That's the other thing you're mining for, is to get resources for permanent upgrades.
Yes.
It's really good. I like a lot of things it's doing. It's quote unquote only got 4 starting characters, but I think those 4 starting characters all feel really distinct, and have multiple options of starting weapons that help them feel more distinct beyond that.
Yeah, so you've got the 4 basic character classes that you have in normal Deep Rock: the Scout, the Gunner, the Driller, and the Engineer.
Yep.
They each have their own sort of default loadout for weapons.
Yep. And the sort of weapon pool they can access.
And then each of the classes that you can unlock, most of those are by playing further along with that particular character. Most of those classes will have like a very specific setup. Like the Engineer's initial setup is you have the turrets that you have to stand still to drop down for a second, and they automatically are just better at building those things.
Yes.
The second version of the Engineer is, I think, called the Tinkerer. They start with the shotgun, and an ability to get more XP. I think they get like 10% XP buff.
Yeah. And I like how different, like, not only the characters, but as you say, those sort of starting weapon / buff are. I've definitely gravitated to a couple more than others. Like the driller, I really, really like. I've been having a lot of fun with them. I've been really enjoying the engineer. The gunner, I've been coming back around on. I really enjoyed them when they were like the first one beyond the scout that I unlocked. And then I got excited by shiny new things. And I've come back to the gunner and gone, you know what, you're pretty interesting.
I had a similar thing probably sometime around yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I went scout, unlocked into the gunner, unlocked, played a little bit with the gunner.
Yeah.
Initially, unlocked the engineer, and then just played mostly as the engineer. Like, I've got the engineer up to, like, level 20 now.
I'm like level 17, 18 as the engineer, I think, somewhere in that range.
I've sort of started going back into the scout now.
The scout's the one I've not gone back to yet.
Weirdly, that like the scout, after a little while, seems to become like one of the more powerful ones.
Yeah, it's one of those things. They're not initially exciting in their build, but they do everything quite well.
Yes, and I think it doesn't help that their second loadout type is a gun that fires only in 4 specific directions.
Yeah.
And that can be very restrictive.
It can.
I can, like, if you can survive long enough to get a second weapon open on that, great, perfect. But that's been one that was a little bit difficult to get into. The other thing, like we talked earlier about the whole like auto shooting aspect, but there are guns that are very specifically only shoot in one direction.
Yes.
Like the gunner's starting machine gun only fires directly in front.
Yes.
So you have to like turn around and face things.
Yes, because there's some that are like, oh, this one fires behind you, but it will auto aim within a range behind you. The gunner's like, no, directly line of sight forward is where it's going to hit.
Yes, as opposed to the driller, who's very specifically about drilling and drilling holes, and their gun only fires behind them. Their first weapon.
Yeah, but that one does have a bit of a targeting range backwards.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, you've got a bit of control or a bit of limitation with some. Others are like, just sort of set it and forget it. Some will be like targets big groups of enemies, or some will be like always targets the thing with the highest HP, which is likely to get bosses. There's a good amount of variety in how you can do those builds.
Yeah, there's a lot of variety in how you can do builds. I am enjoying, now that I've unlocked more weapons, obviously just by playing, you'll achieve certain milestones. Most of them are fairly natural. Like, by having done enough of the between level, like, permanent upgrades, and then, like, as you get upgrades, every time you gain a level, there's, like, a set of, like, 3 upgrades you can pick, and it'll be things like move faster, or reload weapons faster, or it might be a very specific, for a specific weapon upgrade. And that's how you get the weapon levels we talked about earlier that give you the eventual overclocks at level, what did we say, 6, 12, 18?
18, yeah.
But initially you have to play with a weapon up to level 12, unlock it to level 12 in order to unlock those overclocks. I think you've also got to play a few levels before you even unlock secondary missions, and that'll be things like collect 12 mushrooms, or 4 flowers, or 20 of this particular mineral that you'll find in various levels. This is all in early access, so there could still be like a bunch more stuff coming. It runs very nicely on the Steam Deck. As they've pointed out, there are perhaps some UI issues that could be helped along a little bit to run on a smaller screen, but generally, like, it's very stable.
Yeah, I keep thinking about a lot of the choices it makes that there aren't really any direct analogues to in other Vampire Derivers. I really like that the way you start unlocking those powerful overclock abilities on weapons is you have to get a weapon to, I think it's level 12.
Yeah.
Like, one time, which means that you're having to pick a weapon that isn't getting its first 2 overclocks and dedicate that amount of leveling as like a committed choice to then start getting those bonuses in future. And it really does lend to a sense of like ownership once you start going, yes, this thing gets powerful now. It forces you to get used to what is the weapon as a default before you start playing around with changing it too much.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting choice. Like, this game's full of really interesting ideas.
Yeah, I think it's interesting looking at something like this compared to a lot of other Vampire Drivers. Like, I've played far too many to name at this point.
Same.
And the number of times I've gone, okay, they're doing that weapon from Vampire Survivors, they're doing that weapon, that weapon, that weapon. Sometimes even basically naming them the same thing. Scarlet Tower is particularly guilty of things like that. It's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what weapon that is based on.
Yeah.
I know exactly what that is. In fact, you've named it the same thing. Like, I guess there are only so many effects you could reasonably think of, but I think this one has done a really good job of, like, making a lot of its things its own idea.
Yeah.
And while also keeping it true to the source material.
Exactly. I don't know many Vampire Drivers in which you can wield a gun that spirals around you, sort of green toxic goop, versus here's a little sort of radioactive, like microwave laser that'll sort of circle around trying to target things. Like, these all feel distinct.
Yeah, and then you've obviously got things like the turrets, which are fascinating, because the engineer starts with basic gun turrets, but then you can start to get flamethrower turrets, you can get, like, the laser fence turrets.
We haven't mentioned, I don't know any other Vampire Drivers that do reloading, where there are periods of time where your weapon just isn't dealing damage.
20 minutes till dawn, does it?
Oh, yeah,
Not well.
yeah. No,
it does do it.
But point being, like, I like how this handles it. I think it does well as a mechanic. I think that it forces you to pick your build around, like, keeping an eye on when things can redeploy.
Yeah.
It's
and also just that moment of peril of, I've got a thing that only fires in one direction. I'm right at the start of, like, I'm level 1, I've just dropped in. Making those first few minutes actually feel kind of perilous.
Yeah.
Like, a big problem I have with a lot of these things is they go too quickly for, like, overkill, overpowered.
Yes.
Like, the number of these where I've gone for the full, however long run is 30 minutes, in my second or third run. And that never feels as satisfying as, I got like 15 minutes through a run, but I unlocked like this and this and this and this, and I'm making slow progress.
You want to maintain that feeling of the first 7 minutes of Vampire Survivors.
Yeah.
That I'm not quite ready for this feeling.
Yeah, but I am slowly at least acquiring gold in order to buy the permanent
I'm creeping
upgrades.
ever further, but there's always that little spectre of, I'm quite vulnerable here.
Yeah, and I think Deep Rock has done a really good job of that. And again, like the fact that you've got the hazard levels that will slowly increase as you complete more of the level specific and hazard level specific tests and things like every one of them seems to have complete the dive. So do all 5 levels, defeat the boss, get home. Then there'll be specific things like get a specific weapon to a certain level. Mm-hmm. So you're encouraged to go through and get those weapons leveled up for various reasons. Then you've got the artifacts which you can find in the drop pods, and that could be things like mine certain materials when you're mining regular rock, or stand still while firing and you'll get a slowly increasing stacking benefit. Loads of different stuff like that. More and more of that just unlocks periodically.
Yeah.
And then the whole, like, the escape pod mechanic.
Yes, that when you beat the sort of boss of a particular, like, floor of the thing you're going through, no matter where you are in the level, you've got 30 seconds to get to that drop pod before it leaves. And it always seems to drop in a position where you've got a little bit of time to play with within that 30 seconds for, like, if you have to take a slightly circuitous route or take a second to kill some enemies. But it's not a lot of time. You don't have a lot of time to dilly-dally.
Yeah.
And you will often, like, if you're in the middle of a very dangerous swarm and you take a second to try and duck and weave, end up going, I am literally seconds away, like, run and making that last minute run, ignore it, like, I'm just going to run through some basic enemies and take the damage because I need to get on that ship.
Because there's nothing more painful than almost making it to the drop pod and watching it just leave without you and just go, that's it, your run's over.
Yeah, they've balanced that countdown timer versus how far away they put it pretty well.
I think it's always 30 seconds, and then it's always within a specific range of you. And the only time I've had any problem with the distance versus time is in the hollow bow levels where there are impossible walls. Just about every other level, or every other level that exists so far, like in the magma core, you can run through the fire. It's not good for your health, but you can do it. But in hollow bow, you've got those big walls that are completely impassable, and that comes to like the only time I've experienced anything resembling what I might call a bug, because all the enemies are bugs. And that was, I got to one of the bosses at the end of the stage on hollow bow. It spawned, clearly, somewhere, but I couldn't find it. And it wasn't able to get to me because it was clearly stuck on the other side of one of these walls. And whereas most of the time they'll, like, be able to dig through, like, general walls, they weren't able to get through the impassable wall, which meant the enemies were getting stronger and stronger and stronger because that's a whole mechanic. As soon as the boss has spawned, there's, like, another countdown timer where all of the local enemies are going to get more, there's going to be more of them spawning, and they're going to be harder and faster until you defeat that boss. At which point, it obviously triggers the escape thing, and it basically just got harder and harder and harder and harder, and I just died trying to find the boss. And that happened once, and that is literally my only complaint with this game so far. Yeah, enjoying. Looking forward to more, and yeah, there's still a good amount of game left in this. I'm excited. What about you? What else have you played?
I finally started playing a game that I got gifted a copy of over the festive period and got reminded existed by a YouTube video that I didn't write down the title of, but it was one about the best animation in video games in 2023 that we watched the other night. And one of the games in there was a game called Cookie Cutter, which was the one where they were like, we're going to have to be very careful with the footage we show to not get demonetized. Yes. So, Cookie Cutter is a side-scrolling, like, melee combat Metroidvania. I'm going to try and explain what the plot concept is. In space, there is this big technosphere that everyone was like, no idea what the fuck's going on in there. People enter and never return. And some megacorp, basically the Amazon equivalent in this setting, managed to get whatever the fuck was in the middle of that big thing in space, and that corporation and them alone leapt forward hundreds of years in technological development, and used that to be corporate shitbags the way that corporate shitbags do. Someone who was working as an engineer for the big megacorp has a sort of moral change of heart, and they've been working on making like robots for the megacorp. And they're like, I'm gonna make this one very special robot who can go tear down the evil megacorp. And this scientist gets discovered doing this work, and gets kidnapped, and her robot gets beat to shit. And now she's put herself back together, and she's gonna go on a mission to go murder her way back to saving her creator. This game is fucking gorgeously animated. Absolutely gorgeously animated. Emphasis on the gore in gorgeously. It's one of those games where I would hesitate to say it might be a little over-animated. There are occasions where, like, it's not often, but occasionally if I've got, like, a room and it's just a bunch of platforms and I'm, like, trying to climb up to the top, occasionally I'll run a little further than I meant to on a platform because a nice run animation is happening. But it's not a frequent issue, and it's not an issue in combat, and I'm willing to have that little bit of annoyance to let this game be what it is, which is a very hard game with absolutely beautifully fluid combat. The way that the combat works...
Like Hollow Knight?
A little bit. The combat, weirdly... The core combat idea reminds me weirdly of specific RPGs, and the most recent one that does this that's been on my head is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. It does the whole thing of you have regular attacks that build up a meter and special attacks that use that meter, in like that sort of recovering your magic sort of system. But in this, it's you have regular attacks that don't do much damage, but they fill up a meter that can be used to use either big tech attacks that are your sort of like big damage dealer, or can be used, again, kind of Hollow Knight-esque, as a resource for healing your health pool. And the idea is, do a bunch of comboing the weak attacks to build up your meter so you can, punch with a big cyber fist or whatever.
Okay.
And there's a stun mechanic as well, where if you get an enemy's health low enough, you can walk up to them, press the big attack button, and you sort of gloriously rip them apart in a Mortal Kombat style finisher to get a shit ton of special move meter and health back and resources. So it's
a bit like Doom's like chainsaw kills from the modern Dooms.
Very much like Doom's chainsaw kills. So what you want to be doing is like your weak attacks build up so you can do your strong attacks, but you don't want to go all the way down to no health, like completely kill the enemy with the big attacks. Maybe you're coming toward the end, you start doing weak attacks again just to chip them into the range where you can do your chainsaw kill type thing. The game is difficult. It is a challenging game. Particularly when, like, the first time I really realized what this game was going to throw at me was the first time it locked me in a room with, like, 15 enemies. And, like, a lot of them have telegraphed attacks that you can parry, but I'm very bad at doing the parry. It is a very tight parry window. There is no options to let you have a bigger window for parries. So I was doing a lot of dodges. You can get very overwhelmed by enemies in this very quickly. You have to be very sort of, like, aware of the space you're in, and like it's got that Souls game style. Get a couple of little hits in and back off. Like, don't get greedy. I know that you could press the button a few more times and go a bit further in a combo, but don't overextend your combo. Just get out safely. It's very satisfying. I don't know if I am skilled enough to be able to complete this game.
Right.
Like, I've so far not hit a block where I am unable to progress, and I've not been frustrated with it yet, but the challenge level is high enough early enough in the game that I can see.
You're not feeling hopeful?
I can see that it's going to escalate to a point where I start struggling, and I'm going to enjoy it until that point, but I don't know how far through the game that's going to be. I love a lot of the world building. I really like a lot of the character design, the voice acting, the way that the world is built. It is a really enjoyable space to exist within. It is absolutely a gorgeous game, and if nothing else, it is well worth checking out some gameplay footage of, because like there is so much love in every little animation this game has. Very much enjoying it. Don't know how far I will be able to get into it, but I see what the hype is about. What about you? You played anything this week?
Before it comes to me, I was going to say, well, we're talking on the subject of fancy and lovingly made graphics. Are you going to tell us a little bit about Arzette?
Oh, yeah, Arzette. So I binged through Arzette this week. Arzette is essentially
Sorry, point head towards the microphone.
Sorry. Arzette is basically a unofficial sequel to the two CDI Zelda games. These are the ones that you might know as having the quite hilariously animated cutscenes from back in the day. The sort of very, very over-the-top, rotoscoped, exaggerated character cutscenes. No one really shows you the gameplay of that game very often, because the game itself was very unforgiving, not particularly well-designed, not particularly enjoyable mechanically to play. Very, very brutal and unforgiving. This game is a very loving follow-up to those that has done a very good job of capturing, like, has done a very good job of not feeling like a parody, or particularly a mean-spirited parody. It feels like a very sincere love letter. It helps that they've apparently got a bunch of people from those original CDI Zelda games to come back, including voice actors, composers, background artists, things like that. I was dubious of anyone's ability to deliberately invoke the humour of those CDI Zelda cutscenes in a way that didn't come across as just forced replication. Because, like, part of the charm of those old cutscenes is it was very unclear how much was intentional and how much was not in some of the delivery of how those came across.
Yeah.
And I'm really impressed at how genuinely well this captures the things that made those cutscenes fun and weird and silly without just feeling like a retread, without feeling forced. They've really captured the magic of that very well. Gameplay-wise, as familiar as it looks and on the surface plays, it is far less frustrating, far better at checkpointing. There is a little bit of you're not always certain 1000% where you're going to be walking on a thing because of the painted backgrounds. A little bit of that has been kept to feel in theme with the original games. It is far less prominent, and when it does happen, it's never over, like, here's a gap, if you fall, you're gonna die and have to go back to a checkpoint.
Yeah.
It's always in a very safe situation where it evokes a little of the weirdness of how those played.
Yeah, and at least generally from what I could tell, the platforms are at, like, the same height that they are drawn in.
Oh, 1000%. Like, I could point to a couple of palm trees where it was unclear how far along the palm fronds I could walk. But again, that never happened in a setting where it was going to be frustrating. It was like, it's being like the old CDI Zeldas. As a follow-up to the two CDI Zeldas, as essentially we made a third game in that series but changed the names of things around, I really like what they do to the canon of that universe, because the CDI Zelda games are weirdly still one of the only places where you can play as, like, playable Zelda.
Yeah.
And for a long time, it kind of sucked that the only place you really got to play as Zelda was in some very bad games. And not only is this a much more enjoyable game to play than those first two CDI Zeldas were, they really lean into this is a series about Zelda being the hero. And they make some really good character choices that Nintendo would never fucking make, about how Zelda ultimately is going to deal with this recurring evil. And I really like, genuinely, I wish that some of the plot decisions made into this, I wish were in, like, canon to the Zelda universe. There are some very, very, very good choices that I like very much. I really enjoy the game-long trading quest that exists. I think it is the right level of weird and silly, and sort of strung out game-long in the right kind of way. I very much enjoy that as you dig a bit further in, you start getting some pretty cool abilities that help to paper over some of the deficiencies of the CDI Zelda games in interesting ways.
Right.
I like that there is an easy mode where if you would just, like, enemies to sometimes drop health, for example, that's really appreciated. I like that they've made this weird, janky thing from the past accessible and genuinely very enjoyable. And I very much love it. I am a big... If you have nostalgia for those CDI Zelda games but don't want to actually go through the effort of
trying to make a Philips CDI work.
Trying to make a Philips CDI work or trying to make an emulator work and then actually having to play the games. Like, the first two CDI Zeldas, I would say just go watch the cutscenes on YouTube and have a laugh. This is worth playing.
Yeah.
And that is a credit to it. It feels like those old CDI Zeldas while actually being enjoyable to play. Arzette is fascinating, and I'm glad it exists.
What was your playtime on that? It felt like you got through it
I think it was like
amount of
5 or 6 hours, and that was for me to, like, do the whole trading quest. I don't know whether that timer counts, like, if I die and go back. I'm not sure what bits of that counts. But I think
so
it was...
it's got an in-game timer?
There's an in-game timer, and I believe it was 5 or 6 hours on the in-game timer. But it was the right length for that kind of experience, I think.
I imagine to carry on that sort of energy for cutscenes and things would be difficult to string on.
It manages not to outstay its welcome, and that is a good thing. But yeah, what about you?
I've not played a huge amount that you haven't also played, because mostly it's been Deep Rock Galactic, but also played some Wyrmspan.
We did!
Which is the latest release from Stonemaier Games. This is based on incredibly popular engine builder Wyrmspan by Elizabeth Hargrave. This is Connie Vogelman's version about dragons.
Yes, Wyrmspan is a board game about collect a bunch of birds, they do various things, they lay eggs, you make your little diorama, and that'll score you points. This is that, but with dragons and a couple of extra steps to do.
Yeah, so traditionally you would have 3 different environments. You'd have your, I think it was tree birds, ground birds, and water birds in Wyrmspan. In this, you just have 3 different types of cave.
Yeah.
And different dragons will gravitate towards different environments. But as opposed to just going, yep, I'm putting my next thing down, along to the right of my previous bird. Here you very specifically have to go, okay, I am paying the cost to excavate the next cave so that I can bring a dragon to live in that cave. And the cave cards that you're putting down as you're excavating will have different rewards on. So sometimes they will be like just straight up get a certain type of resource, and other times it will be you get something and maybe everybody else playing gets a limited version of that. So you could maybe give and take on that. And then once you've filled all of your caves, like as you fill your last space in with an excavated cave, you have a chance to go, okay, I'm going to spend 3 other resources, be they cave cards or dragon cards or any of the regular items. You can spend 3 of those to get an extra coin, and coins are basically how you register turns in this, but there seem to be a decent number of ways that you can get extra coins, be it as a result of the way you play a certain dragon type, or, as I say, getting to the end there. Sometimes they'll be on cave cards themselves. So there's loads of little ways of getting a little bit of extra action economy, and it's kind of fascinating because each of the caves is good for getting a specific thing, because one of the actions is that you are exploring through, and that could be, if you go through the top cave, that seems to focus mostly on getting resources, so you'll be getting one of the main 4, which would be meat, crystal, gold, or milk. And then, the next spot on that cave, you will move around the guild track, and we'll talk about that in a second. Then another one of any of the 4 resources, get an egg, and the last one is, I think, you can just cash 2 resources onto any dragons.
It's kind of a engine builder, sort of almost like it feels a little like programming games in that sense of, let's say this bottommost cave, that's very good for getting cave cards. But I'm adding my dragons to it, and a lot of those will do things as I activate that row. Not only will it let me go further along the row that gets me all the dragon cards, but other things will sort of pop off in order along that row based on how I've built it.
Yes.
And you're trying to build a series of things that will, in some way benefit each other when you sort of work down this row of activated abilities.
Yeah. Basically, the 3 different environments you can build in, or 3 different cave systems you can build in are... they're basically 3 separate small engines.
Yeah.
And the types of dragons you play, as you entice more dragons into your various cave areas, will be, they'll have different abilities. Some of them will be when you walk past them, when you're doing an expedition, and that will potentially give you various benefits or give you ways of creating point scoring options for the end of the game. Some of them will be very specifically when played actions, and they will never do anything else again apart from take up space in your cave and be worth points and maybe be a space to store eggs if they are able to do so. Other ones will have end of round abilities that will trigger at the end of every round, and the last type will score only at the end of the game based on certain circumstances. So I had one the other day. If this dragon will get 2 points for every other dragon orthogonally adjacent to it. Fairly easy to work out, and other ones, you'll get points based on how many, what the personality type of other dragons in your cave are. I think I had one the other day. It was you'll get 2 points for every aggressive dragon in this cave. The art is beautiful and adorable.
It is.
Rather than Wyrmspan's thing of a little bird fact about each of the birds on the actual cards themselves, this just gives you a whole extra manual that comes in the box that gives you a little bit of lore about every single one of the dragons, which means the main cards are a bit cleaner, a bit easier to read, and less cluttered, especially if you're trying to read somebody else's cards from across the table to work out what's going to happen when they run their engine, and if there's some way you can make it benefit you. This, in many ways, this feels slightly less potential of giving tons of points to your opponents as Wyrmspan. Wyrmspan seemed to have a lot of cards that would, if somebody else gets one of this, you get one of this, which I guess adds to interaction, but also can make you go I don't dare put that down, because I need to do my best. They're already doing well. And like any deck-based or card-based game, there is always the potential that RNG will screw you over a little bit. So anything that avoids going, yes, well, I finally got a card I can place in the right place, but it would otherwise have benefited other players to play it. So avoiding stuff like that feels quite nice. Because it feels like nothing worse than going, I'm already behind. If I do think this one thing that I can finally do, it's going to benefit someone else and put me more behind.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've had like pretty good even scores. I've played 3 games against the Automa. It being a Stonemaier game, it's got a nice Automa. It's really easy to run. You just shuffle 8 cards, turn them over, and they will have particular identifiers. There's also a second version of the Automa that runs slightly differently and more reactive to how you're playing, which is perhaps a little bit more complicated. I haven't dived into that yet, but like the base one is you can run. You're basically flipping a card over, taking like 1 or 2 actions, and then kind of forgetting about it until the end of the game. And yeah, it's really nice, really easy to understand. Like, the number of times I've played solo modes where it's just too much fucking work, and it's too much to focus on and trying to, like, work out what all these random fucking icons mean. This one particularly is just so easy to run. In fact, so much so that the first time I accidentally ran it wrong, and still had a really good time, but did manage to lose by a considerable amount just because of the way the scoring worked for that. And it manages to work with loads of different... We didn't even talk about the guild track. It's a whole, like, little looping track that you will slowly have a chance to move around on pretty much every time you run your engine. And you'll get basic rewards for every single step along there. And at 2 points at the start and the halfway mark along this looping track, you will get a chance to put a cube into the middle and get a special reward. Some of that will be just points. But alternatively, you could just go, I'm going to put my thing here and get a reward for right now. And that could be anything from put your cube here and get an extra coin and 2 extra resources. Or it could be, like, here's 6 points for the end of the game. Or score based on, like, particular sets of dragons or the way you paid for your dragons. And, I think it's different enough to Wyrmspan that I hopefully that will assuage a lot, because a lot of people were very angry about this. They felt like it was just a money grab or a spin-off. But, like, I've played a decent amount of Wyrmspan, and this definitely feels very different. In a number of ways. Like, the fact that you don't have to build your engine technically backwards. Yeah. You can think ahead because you're moving from left to right rather than running your engine from right to left, as in the most recent thing you played to the first thing you played way back when in Wyrmspan, which can be difficult to get your brain around. Indeed. If you don't already know the game so well that you can
know your end game route that
exactly
you're working toward.
Like, if you know exactly what or most of the cards in the game are going to do, you can probably work out an engine much better and more efficiently than somebody who has only just playing the first couple of games of that. And I think that is definitely to its benefit. And also the components are really nice. We've got the upgraded components, but the components are still really nice in all the ways. Yeah. So there's Wyrmspan. Yeah. You got anything else you want to talk about?
The only other thing that maybe falls into that realm that I can very quickly talk about is I took about my Steam Deck this week. Because it wasn't booting up, right?
Oh no.
And I wanted to be playing Deep Rock Survivors on it.
Hell yeah.
And I was like, how hard could it be? The Steam Deck is the nicest device I've ever disassembled.
And you've disassembled a few at this point.
I've disassembled a few at this point. Getting, 8 very normal screws on the back of it. The hardest part was just getting some good purchase to get the plastic clips off to take the plastic back panel off. Once that's off, beautifully well labelled. Everything in there is labelled as to, every single cable is labelled as to what it is. Every single place where something plugs in labels what needs plugging in there. So many of the cables have little fabric loops that you can use to remove them so that you're not pulling directly on the cable material.
Nice.
I was trying to disconnect the battery and just let the thing fully power cycle, and there was very little clearance to pull the ribbon cable for the battery out of the motherboard. There was a little loop that you could use to pull it across properly, so that you weren't like risking trying to get your finger in and accidentally lifting it up rather than out,
or using something small and pointy and potentially ripping the ribbon cable.
It
not that I've ever done that.
This is the most user-friendly, it's the most I've ever opened up a consumer electronic device and gone, you intend for me to be okay? Like, someone who knows enough to follow a YouTube tutorial reasonably, I'm gonna open this up and go, yeah, I feel confident playing around with this.
Yeah, this isn't like talking about people doing Switch mods going, okay, now you're going to need to get like a heat gun or a hairdryer and like hold it over this bit for this amount of time, not for too long, because if the battery goes up, you're in trouble. But you can, here's how you take the screen off. And
oh god, yeah, Nintendo's love of gluing battery, adhesiving batteries into place, it will never not frustrate me.
Yeah,
but it was a treat to fix the Steam Deck. I was like, you know what? If I have to fix my expensive piece of tech myself, at least make it like this for me.
Yeah.
But that's everything I've played this week.
Yeah, I will briefly talk about one other thing. Yeah. I played through the unofficial Stardew Valley board game solo campaign.
Ooh.
Which someone put up on Board Game Geek. Unfortunately, I can't remember the name right now. And it is a 3-year solo campaign rather than the standard play through a set of grandpa's tasks, and that you have to do that within 1 year. You have to complete every single one of the bundles from the community centre, but you basically have a set number of tasks. So within the first year, you have to have foraged one of every season's type of forageable. Mm-hmm. You have to have harvested 2 of every type of crop. So every 2 spring, 2 summer, 2 autumn. You need to have fished 2 legendary, 2 crab pot, and 5 regular fish. So not super difficult. You need, I think, 19 friends by the end of it, and 6 types of animals. And the first year, I was like, this isn't too bad at all. I've done okay here. The first year, you're playing with the starter season cards, but after that, you are just playing with the random ones. So this is the first time I've gone full random for the second and third years. But by then, I had basically achieved all of the things. I did get a bit lucky in a couple of ways. I managed to get quite far down the cave almost by accident. I managed to get the mermaid pendant out fairly early. Ooh. And also get a friend who was marriageable, which meant I had basically an extra action every turn quite early on, which meant that the first year seemed really easy, seemed like it was going really well. In fact, I'd got a little bit ahead of myself. The second year felt really difficult because there was so much extra I had to achieve, and I had struggled a bit on the fishing. And then the third year, I got to about the end of spring and realised I'd done all but one thing, and the only thing I needed to do was forage a winter crop, because you're allowed to go ahead and do things. So basically, in the second year, I had managed to forage extra winter forageables and extra autumn forageables, so I didn't need anything. Extra summer and extra autumn forageables, which means I didn't need them for later on, and for the final year. So all I needed was one final autumn forageable. I'd also had quite good luck about managing to get everything I needed to fill the museum. But it's a really interesting idea. I didn't end up playing all through the last year because I got to the end of spring and was like, I'm just waiting for this forageable in winter, which isn't going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And I've been playing for 3.5 hours. But it was a good 3.5 hours, and I had fun, and I felt like they'd done a good job. I think maybe it could use a little bit of tweaking. But as an idea that somebody put together and put out for free, very much appreciated, and an enjoyable way to make a slightly bigger thing out of the Stardew Valley board game, which is already a really fun time. What, you got anything else?
No, that's it.
Well then,
time for this. All right, come in.
Hi. Yeah, you said that there's been a haunting in the property.
I suspect so. There's
Yes.
been unusual sounds happening,
Yes,
sort of cold spells. I was
cold
hoping,
spells,
I was
yes.
hoping you could confirm for me whether this is the case, whether I have a ghost here.
Oh yeah, you've got very high M readings in this room. I'm noticing a lot of activity over here towards this plug socket.
Okay. Well, can you confirm that the ghost is definitely here? And do you know if they can hear us if we try and give them a message?
Okay, well, I'm going to need to switch on my special spirit helmet. If you just give me a minute,
Okay,
it's going to take
okay.
a while to boot up. Okay, goggles down. Yes, there is definitely a spirit here. Oh, spirits! Would you be willing to communicate with Mr. Jones, was it?
Yes.
Mr. Jones here? I will act as a medium between the two of you.
Hello. This is my property, and you are living here. As the landlord, I will be requiring rent. Don't let the fact that you're dead make you think that you can get off being a cheapskate.
I'm sorry, that's why you called me here?
Yes, I'm not running a charity here. The property is mine, and that includes any astral projected interdimensional space that happens to overlap with it.
I mean, I usually just commune and stop any sort of things like hauntings, like blood dripping.
Or they
down
can
the
haunt
wall.
all they like as long as they pay.
Oh, spirit, did you get all that? Do you spend much time here at the property yourself?
No, why should that matter?
Have you noticed the doors gone? And the windows? And the floorboards are sort of peeling back like skin? And the fires of hell are appearing below us. Is that a feature of the house that you've usually got?
Well, if they want to make their own alterations, it's gonna cost extra.
Oh no, I don't. Let me out! Let me out! Stupid.
So I take it they're not paying then.
I think we'll be paying with our lives!
Cheapskates.
Oh, spirit, fuck this guy right up, but I had nothing to do with it, okay? Huh, what's up with that guy?
Oh no.
Oh, some booming gammon, I guess. Ooh,
Oh.
there's another one over there.
Huh.
Why does it look like they're shouting and screaming, but there's like no sound? It's like someone muted them, it's brilliant.
I'm fascinated.
You're right, Mush. Ooh, I don't...
Oh, very red in the face, that one.
Seems very angry about our hair, I think. The colours of our
I'm
hair.
guessing from
maybe?
the pointing, maybe?
Yeah, and the jumping up and down. Oh, bit of spit on the face there.
Yeah.
Oh, gross.
But again, no sound. Huh.
No.
Huh.
Huh. Excuse me, Fabian, do you know what this is all about?
Oh yes, well you see, they kept complaining that you can't say anything these days, so they can't.
You are brilliant.
I know.
So, what have you put in your eyes?
I...
Tell us all the terrible things you put in your eyes.
Oh, I've put some things in my eyes this week. So, let's start with Madam Web.
Uh-huh.
Because I went and saw Madam Web, a film that I went in knowing wasn't going to be good and being okay with that. And I had a good time watching it. Not like oh, this is so bad I'm laughing out loud, but more of I am watching this with a fascinated curiosity, I feel like a documentarian watching going how did we get here? I will try and explain the plot. I'm really not gonna worry about spoilers. You shouldn't worry about spoilers here. It's fucking Madam Web. There's a woman who is pregnant, and she wants to find a spider that allegedly gives people living in the jungle spider powers. No mention of Spider-Man, but there's spider people in the jungle. Someone on the journey with her shoots her and takes the spider. The spider people go, you're dying, but we'll let the spider bite you, and then your kid will have spider powers, kind of. Only one power, not a spider power. The villain is a man who the man who stole the spider, got bitten by it, and he's basically evil Spider-Man. But because he stole the spider, the jungle cursed him, and he has nightmare visions every night of getting murdered by 3 Spider-Girls.
Okay.
So, he, in 2003, based on the memories of masked Spider-Girls he saw in his dream, creates photorealistic photos of their faces.
Right.
Steals access to the entire NSA mainframe, uses it to track these girls 10 years before they're spider people, based on de-aging photo... Like, here's what I remember them looking like in Spider-Man masks. Let's digitally remove the masks and imagine what they look like then de-age it 10 years, then search CCTV footage, and he successfully finds all 3. And he basically... Evil Spider-Man wants to murder the Spider-Girls before they're Spider-Girls.
Uh-huh.
Madam Web is the baby that was born from the woman who got shot. She can see the future after... Eventually. She has a near-death experience now, she can see the future. She is the most insufferable, unlikable character I've ever seen in a film.
She's the one that hates kids, right?
Yes. Because her mum died when she was a child, she assumes all parents are evil, all children are evil.
Uh-huh.
She works as a paramedic, and she saves some kid's mum, and the kid comes up like, "Thank you for saving my mummy, here's a drawing." And she literally stands there looking at the kid like, "The fuck do you want me to do with that? What the fuck you want me to take this picture for?" She has to be whispered at to go, "Just take it, you can throw it away later if you want." To accept a picture from a child thankful for their saved mother. Like, she's that emotionally detached from everything. Also, Uncle Ben is in this movie. The Uncle Ben of Spider-Man Peter Parker, and Uncle Ben's sister is having a child. Can we guess what the name of the child's going to be at the baby shower? They're not allowed to say Peter Parker. They cannot tell you that is Peter Parker Spider-Man, but they so want you to know that Spider-Man... the Spider-Man in that lady.
Those are very weird phrases.
Honestly, it's what the film felt like it was doing.
Yeah, from what I heard, that sounds accurate.
Then... the rest of the film is, Madam Web has a vision that evil Spider-Man's gonna kill these girls. Q, several hours of, I had a vision of these girls getting something bad happen to them. Now we'll rewatch the last 3 minutes of the film, but I'll do something slightly different. Usually, I know where the villain's gonna be now, so I can hit him with my car. That's usually the solution.
Okay.
Eventually, a big fight happens. She can turn herself into multiples of herself now, and it's unclear how her power of seeing the future turns into that. She gets blinded, and she's in a wheelchair, and now she's Madam Web, as people know her from the comics. This film has the worst ADR I've ever seen in a film, but only for one character. There's occasional bad ADR for other characters, but the villain, every single line he says in the entire film is like a bad redub of like, "Oh, this was a Japanese film, you dubbed English actors over."
Like the jokes they used to make in the 90s about badly dubbed Kung Fu movies.
Yeah, it's that.
Yeah.
Like, I am convinced. You could not convince me I'm wrong on this. Originally, that character had a different accent. The actor was doing a different accent. Like, I don't know whether he was doing more of an accent or less of an accent, and they decided to tone it up or tone it down. But whatever voice he had, they decided they didn't like and made him redo every single line of his dialogue. And clearly it was a last-minute decision because of how rushed of a job they had to do.
Uh-huh.
I've never seen a film that does, like, time loops that has such a bad sense of how much time has passed in each loop.
Yeah.
Like, there are entire scenes that make no sense. The really easy one to point to is Madam Web trudges half a mile through the woods to a diner she doesn't know the location of. Then, upon restarting the time loop, she drives her car to that location that she now knows the location of, and drives straight there, and takes longer to drive half a mile knowing where she's going. Like, she was quicker when she walked half a mile without knowing the direction through the woods. It's shit like this that just does not piece together. It's baffling. It's fascinating. It's weird. Someone let this film happen. I will leave you with the line that the film really, really, really wants you to think is cool. When you take on the responsibility great power will come.
Huh. That sounds familiar.
That's the famous saying, right? That's Spider-Man's famous saying.
No.
No, sorry, no. When you take on the responsibility, great power will come. Oh, big music swell, we said the thing, kind
Is
of.
this the Spider-Person we got from Wish?
It really feels like it. It's never explained why the same spider bites two people. One of them gets Spider-Man powers. She does not. She just sees the future. There's a whole scene where she's like, oh, Spider-Man powers. He had spider powers. I got bit by the same spider. Do I have spider powers? Jumps up against a wall of her apartment, falls down, goes, nope, I don't get spider powers.
No spider powers for you.
That's the whole explanation. Nope, I don't have them.
Nope. Well,
It's well worth watching if you have the option to not directly pay for it. I have an unlimited cinema pass, so it wasn't additional money out of my pocket. And you want to watch a film and just analyze it. It is an endlessly analyzable film.
if you want to watch a film with your head cocked slightly to one side and one eyebrow raised and spend most of the time going,
Yeah.
this could be the film for you.
Yeah. Which led to us watching Morbius.
Yeah.
Morbius is by the same creator, and I'd never seen Morbius, and I was like,
Same.
you know what? Having seen Madam Web, I need to know about Morbius. The curiosity dam has broken.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Morbius?
It's crap. So bad.
It's crap. Weirdly better than Madam Web, in my opinion.
No.
And I say this not because it's a consistently good film, but because it takes more interesting swings.
Yeah.
It's more ambitious than Madam Web. It has more direction and more of a through plot. And the times when it's bad, it is genuinely have a laugh at it, that's hilarious bad.
Yeah, it feels like it's trying to do you can't criticize us for having a disabled villain because the hero's also got a disability.
There's a few.
And then there's that line about Pilates that made me genuinely fucking angry.
Oh my god,
Because I don't know if that was supposed to be, just like a casual thing of, no, I'm not explaining why I have superpowers, as opposed to the number of times disabled people get told, have you tried yoga for your disability, depression, whatever else?
It's, this film's plot feels like it takes a few really big leaps out of fucking nowhere with no build-up. I think that's the most amusing thing about it. It is conceptually... two friends are both dying of an illness that is making them sort of weak and frail, and they're gonna die in their 40s. And one of them's like, I'm gonna go research bats and see if bats are the cure. Oh shit, I made myself into a vampire, kind of. Good thing I invented fake blood.
And the other one's a billionaire.
Yeah, the other one's a billionaire, he's funding the research. And the second that, your disability / illness can be cured, but you will become a bloodthirsty, ravenous vampire that will eventually need to feed on human skin and go murdering. Mm-hmm. With I would say about 1% of an explanation goes, cool, I'm gonna go become a mass murderer. There's one scene that you can maybe go, I think I understand maybe what they were how they were trying to set this up. It feels like it's so out of fucking nowhere. Like, it's 0 to 1,000 on the... Like, the villain has no arc from, I am a child...
We barely spend any time with him. We have kid gets bullied, and when given an opportunity to strike back at a bully, really fucking goes for it.
I mean, look...
Which I think was supposed to be the lead up for things.
Yeah, but, as someone that once, I once got bullied by some people pretty fucking bad and snapped and smacked someone's head against a urinal... Sometimes that happens in the heat of the moment. Doesn't mean if you offered me vampire serum, but it'll be uncontrollable and I'll have to go murder people, that I'd go, sounds great, I fucking love murder.
No, it feels like you could almost make a good point about the moment that the oppressed person retaliates and strikes back, that you're trying to say that makes them as bad as the bully.
Oh, 1,000%. It really, it feels what the film's trying to do with its villain is go, disabled person who gets bullied. If you don't let them get powerful, they'll fucking 1,000 times more be the bully more. They're only not the bully because they can't be the bully. They'd be the bully if they could. It
Maybe they wouldn't want to be the bully if society wasn't so angled against them.
It feels so gross.
Yeah, so much
Like-
of this film feels gross. There's a number of moments that are just very ick, generally.
There's a lot of
The
this...
existence of Jared Leto.
Yeah. There's a lot of this film that just feels like it has really ill thought through ideas about disabled people.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's walking the line between disabled people are pitiable and there's nothing worse than being disabled and you do anything to not be disabled, and disabled people are secretly evil. If you give them half a chance they'll be evil and powerful and kill you. And like, it wants to be both of those at once. And it sort of does both in the worst ways,
Yes.
while also being a haphazardly cut vampire action film.
Yep.
The number of times I was watching things happen and going, like, absolutely... I'm going to talk about one thing that annoyed me in this film, and it's emblematic of so many other things I won't reference, which is Jared Leto is keeping a bunch of bats for secret experiments in his science lab.
In the
He's-
bat tube.
Yeah, he's keeping them in the bat tube. It's covered up, but like you can open the blinds and be like, there's a bunch of bats in here.
That are somehow flying around in a tiny little space.
Yes.
And also, they're supposed to be vampire bats, and they don't feel big enough.
Yeah, so it's stated directly, he is not allowed to have these bats, he is not funded to have these bats, he will lose his license, he'll lose his research, he'll lose everything if these bats are discovered. We're having this conversation while the bat tube is open and all the bats are visible, and his office just has a wall-to-ceiling glass door wall along one side of it.
Yep.
And there are people walking past in the building. Like,
No one must know.
just no one turns their head slightly to the right to see the tube full of bats that is very clearly on display for like several minutes of the film. At one point, Jared Leto's in another room treating another patient, and he can see the bat tube through the corridor, through the glass door. I'm like, just close the bat tube. Close the bat tube.
No.
You've stated you're going to lose your career if anyone sees the bats. Close the blinds on the bat.
Internal logic be damned.
So many of this film's things are things like that wind me up. Morbius sure is a film.
A bad film. A very bad film.
And
Don't give it money, we didn't.
Yeah, an amusing time was had watching a not good film. What about you? What have you watched this week?
I watched a video called The Dark Reality Behind Total Forgiveness on the channel, on YouTube. Bailey Ordway.
Yeah.
Not someone I've ever heard of. Do you remember Total Forgiveness on Dropout?
Yes, this was the show where...
Grant and Ally.
Yeah, Grant and Ally were doing
Trying-
challenges to try and pay off their student loan debt.
Exactly.
Yes.
I do not remember the end of this season, and I feel like maybe we never watched it.
I started watching Total Forgiveness. I don't think I ever finished it.
We were watching it together at one point.
Because, like, as much as it was, let's pay off your entire student debts by making TV, I felt awkward watching it.
Yeah, because much as the conceit, and especially from the initial setup, is because like the whole first episode is like Grant and Ally just being like, how can we just get Sam to just give us a bunch of money? How can we turn our need for money into content? You know, like most people earn money.
Exactly.
And the concept between the two of them being like, hey, we could, maybe make our lives a bit better through this, and also make it into content, seemed really good. And from the first few episodes, it was just a bit awkward and a little bit weird. But then it did start to feel more, if Mr. Beast was making this, it would be much more problematic.
The things I remember about how that went is I remember there was a turning point where they realised the amount of money, like, because of the way they were going to have to pay taxes on this, the amount of money that they were getting and the amount of money that would actually get paid off their student loans was differing a lot more than expected. And I also know that neither of them ended up with their student loans entirely paid off after the series was done. I know those facts.
Yeah, I think so the whole concept of the show was that they were going to try and earn a bunch of money. The first episode, I think, was like $400 each.
Yeah.
And they were, I think the last episode was supposed to be something like 75 grand. And initially it was, they were setting challenges, slightly humiliating challenges for each other. Like in the first one, in one of the first 2 or 3 episodes, Ali got like skin dyed orange and hair dyed green.
Yeah.
So that they ended up looking a bit like an Oompa Loompa.
Yes, yeah.
And like like that green hair look was a look Ali ended up rocking for a while.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like, there was an episode, I think somewhere around 4 or 5, where Grant had to sell all of his possessions at a thrift store, like a thrift market, and, or flea market, and had to make $1,000. Had sold all of his stuff, made just over $600. And, like, I think that might have been the same day. No, that wasn't the same day. But, those, like, the skin dyeing thing and the selling all the stuff thing happened around the same time. And at some point during this show, those two almost fell out. Because Grant was having to do things that were, like, genuinely, fucking up his life. Like, we had the, like, selling all this stuff, like, what have you got now, actually?
Yeah.
Like, you did the thing. You didn't even pass the challenge. Like, it would have been maybe fine. But the point is, you still ended up down on everything, because whatever else, you've now got no furniture.
Yeah. And I will quickly chime in. I think that feels very different to Drop Out of today.
Yes.
Where you will frequently get, like, Game Changer episodes where it's like, the conceit is that this is how, like, money is won in the thing, and then the reveal at the end will be, actually all of you won, and, like, there's, you know, the prize is bigger and more money than you anticipated. Like, it's not...
I suspect some of that was... like learned from watching Total Forgiveness. And like the other thing they talk about is as the things progressed, like one of the missions was Ali had to stay locked in a coffin all day. And had to listen to work colleagues doing like a eulogy. Like had to attend their own like a whole funeral thing. And Ali going from like this was like kind of fascinating. Like after a while, it started to feel like a sensory deprivation tank, and I kind of like lost all track of time. And apparently now they like have a whole meditation thing going on now. Like they meditate regularly every day and have a whole like mindfulness thing, and it's like generally been quite good for their health. I think that was the day Grant sold everything. The one after that was Ali had to get a neck tattoo with the name of recently got together with girlfriend. And Ali was like, yeah, okay, sure. And Grant's one that day was have to get on stage in front of a bunch of people and have a shit.
Here's the thing. The problem I have with stuff like Mr. Beast content, and the thing that felt really uncomfortable at beyond a point of watching Total Forgiveness, was, and I think for a TV show it's all the worse, is it's great that you've had this idea and that you're sort of in control of the thing, but once you get a few episodes into recording a TV show, the pressure is, I can't say no or back out because we've already committed to filming, we've already done things have been lined up for me, I've accepted money now, like, for prizes, and if someone, like, let's say the other contestant has already done something terrible, that they had a really bad time with, you then start going, well, I can't go to the producers and say this is a line too far for me, can we, like, reshoot and replan, because... well, they didn't get to for that last thing, and you start both, I imagine, locking yourselves into feeling like you can't back down.
I would imagine there is some degree of that.
Yeah, that you need safeguards in place for a thing like that, of the ability to go, I know the conceit of the show is that we're going to go through misery, but I need to red card this.
And I also get from a point of living in America where you have student debt issues and working multiple jobs and all the other problems, plus healthcare issues.
Yeah.
The whole, trying, like, going, you know what, I would be willing to debase myself in some game show or other, or for some kind of content to make money.
Yeah.
Like, I get how people have got into these situations, but, like, it felt like all of the things, like, were a little bit awkward, and Ali ended up, like, generally feeling quite positive about all of the things. Like, the tattoo was fine.
Yeah.
Getting locked in a box turned out to be a really positive experience. But whereas, like, another one of Grant's ones was going on stage, doing stand-up comedy in front of a room full of strangers, and performing in a set that Ali had written. It was later discovered that they were all fans of Grant's that did not know that this was a bit.
Oh.
And I think Ali, the equivalent that same day was having to try and convince your recently moved in housemates that you're in some kind of MLM and like being fed like through an earpiece, like things you have to say about your MLM. And it felt like I can understand how we dropped off of this and never really thought about it again until I mentioned it earlier today. But the ending is ultimately what we missed from that. So they get to the end. They are on kind of vastly different amounts.
Yeah.
And Ali is feeling a bit shit about the fact that their friendship is kind of falling apart in the background.
Yeah.
And the final day's challenge was... Ali's challenge to Grant was you have to come out and have a nice day. They went to a theme park with a bunch of people. And Grant's challenge to Ali was come to a bar and drink these 3 drinks with me. And Ali poured out the last drink. Just like, nope. It's like, that's so sweet.
Oh, gosh. I understand what I feel like I can guess what led to Grant being given a worse time. And, like, looking from the outside cynically, Grant is often in a lot of, like, game changer content the first person to agree to, like, voluntarily up the stakes on debasing themselves.
Yeah, constantly.
But that's always in a situation where they are volunteering the embarrassing thing they're going to do. It is ultimately still in their control. Yeah. I imagine that it's that one Game Changers episode that I think ended with Grant drinking out of a toilet.
Yes.
But again, that was a suggestion that Grant made to try and outbid the other people.
Yeah.
It was still something Grant had control over. But I can see how in the early days of trying to make this kind of content with Dropout, Sam Rush could end up in a situation of, well, it's okay if, or Ali could end up in a situation of, it's okay if Grant gets a big challenge because Grant's the one that does big silly things.
I can see how if you've got a bit of a reputation around the office, and like I imagine a lot of this hasn't necessarily come out of the kind of thing, like we haven't had the breaking news episode where we learnt so much about Grant personally. But like I can see from Ali's point of view, just going, oh yeah, you know, this is just like a silly thing, like pooping in front of people, trying to get a boner on command, doing bad stand up. Like individually, none of these things feel super bad. I feel like the selling your shit thing went a bit too far.
That's the one that like I can understand that being a friendship breaker.
Yeah,
like the second that my day-to-day life is going to be permanently negatively impacted.
Yes. Like, I'm already skint and working 3 jobs.
Yeah.
Now I don't have a bed.
That's the one that, like, it would hurt that someone would challenge me to that. Someone that I thought was a friend would make me do that.
Yeah.
That would hurt. And I can imagine that one. But again, this is maybe why the challenges needed to be picked by a neutral third party, perhaps.
Yeah.
To keep
someone
some degree
to go, that is too far.
Yeah.
Or that is unsafe for you personally.
Yes. Dropout today seems a lot better, and that was one of the first Dropout shows I remember.
I feel like that is almost certainly somewhere they learned from, just to go, no, we're not doing a second series of this.
Yeah.
We are going to be a lot more careful about people's well-being generally.
Yeah. I don't like stuff where people's mental health is put at risk because there is the dangling of money you know they need.
Yes.
I stumbled upon a clip of a Mr. Beast video the other day. I don't watch his content, but I stumbled upon... he locked a friend in a coffin, a partially buried coffin to make sure there wasn't any light visible.
Right.
And it was, you have to spend 24 hours in this coffin, but you are in pitch black with 0 way to tell the time. And if you leave before the 24 hours is up, you get nothing. And this person, like, quite psychologically torturing themselves because of how quickly they lost track of time, staying in there for nearly 2 straight days, because they were like, yeah, but what if it isn't 24 hours yet and I lose all that money? And, like, shit like that is... It's not okay to put someone through torture because you know they need money.
Yeah.
Like, that is just fundamentally fucked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, sounds interesting. I'm not surprised I didn't finish Total Forgiveness.
Yeah, same. I am glad it ended well and that they have vastly repaired their friendship.
Yeah.
But I can absolutely see how at some point we just dropped off of that show and never went back.
Yep.
What have you watched? Anything else?
I today watched a silly, light-hearted children's film at the cinema. I watched Migration,
Okay.
which is an Illumination, the Despicable Me Minions people, film. First of all, I forget that children's films sometimes do this. There was like a 10-minute long, just different animated short before this.
Yeah.
In the Despicable Me universe, I think it was a villain from one of the Despicable Me's ended up trapped on the moon, and it was him and a minion trying to find their way back to Earth for 10 minutes.
Okay.
It was like watching a Wile E. Coyote cartoon where there is no Roadrunner.
Right.
Where Wile E. Coyote is still trying to do the Acme style, build the things that will then fail and you'll probably get hit by something heavy.
Uh-huh.
But it was a science nerd trying to slingshot himself into space or whatever.
Right.
Harmless stuff. It was well animated. I will give it that it did a good job of doing the sort of squash and stretch Looney Tunes style slapstick animation in 3D. And capturing that variety of animation in 3D quite well. But yeah, Migration itself, the concept is pretty simple. There's a family of ducks. The dad is absolutely fucking terrified of everything, wants to stay in the one pond. Other birds go migrate. Migrating sounds great to the rest of the family. They want to go see...
it sounds migrate.
I think it was... Was it Jamaica they're heading to? I think it was Jamaica. And they try and migrate. Events happen along the road. A portion of the film is spent going, shit, we're in a city. We don't know what a city is. We've lived in a pond forever. For a while, the film kind of becomes Chicken Run, in that there is a recurring villain who is a chef who likes to make duck à l'orange, who is really, really, really fucking intent on having very specific ducks. He's got a helicopter and a vendetta, and he wants those ducks. That is the closest to an antagonist this has. It was an enjoyable little adventure film with very low stakes, but it was well paced. It had some amusing vocal performances. Nothing that happened in this film was in any way consequential, and I will not remember that I've seen this film. A month from now, I'll go Migration. What was that? Sorry. I had an enjoyable time where nothing meant anything and nothing will stick with me.
Brain off, you enjoyed that.
Exactly. That was basically it. But we did watch a heavier thing this past weekend.
We did.
A film that you have seen and I had never seen before, despite wanting to. Looking for a friend at the end?
Seeking a friend for the end of the world.
Seeking a friend for the end of the world. That's a hell of a fucking film.
So the premise of this film that is set up quite early on as a radio announcement that imagine that the asteroid from Armageddon is heading towards the Earth, that the ship went up there and they were planning to try and destroy it, and then the ship gets destroyed on the way to the asteroid and there is no way of stopping it. So in 2 weeks, an asteroid that's 18 miles wide is going to just completely obliterate the Earth.
Yep.
Which will absolutely, very definitely destroy all life on it.
Yes. And our main character, we meet, him...
Sitting in a car.
Yeah, sitting in a car with his lady friend.
His wife.
His wife. And the announcement happens, and she opens the car door and sprints away. And that is the last time she is seen.
Yes.
She does not want to spend she does not want to spend her last 2 weeks with him. And it is one man trying to work out how he's going to spend what little time there is left.
Yep. When you absolutely know when the end is coming, how will you spend that? And it is an interesting look at all of the sort of possible possibilities you could expect from that. Yeah. From rioting gangs down the street setting fire to cars and buildings,
to eerie silence of people just not knowing what to do with themselves, to people keeping their routine up and in some cases completely flat out not acknowledging what is happening and just living life as if it wasn't going to happen.
People forming little communes on the beach.
Yeah. It is.
People starting drug orgies in roadside restaurants.
Yep. It is in part a film about the ways that the world might deal with the trauma of knowing what is coming. It is part one person's journey to try and not be alone at the end. It is a buddy road trip.
Yeah.
It is a few different things all threaded together with we know what's coming, and that is the connective tissue for all the things this film is.
Yeah. It's... I was worried, because a lot of the films that came out around this time, I was kind of worried that this might not have aged well. But I remember that at one point it was one of my favourite films. I think partly because it is that whole journey of, like, how will you deal with humanity? How will humanity deal with certain things, and sometimes finding the best of people, sometimes finding the worst of people, and the best of people gathering together in, like, little pockets, and acts of maybe something a little bit selfish that turned into something very generous and kind. Letting things go, trying to gather as much of the last of things to yourself, trying to make up for mistakes of the past. Being a bit more free about how you express yourself and feel, because there's no point sitting on things, because there isn't going to be too much more.
It's a hell of a film. It is.
Yes.
It is heavy at times. It is bleak at times. It is uplifting and joyous. It is cathartic. It made me feel a lot of the feelings I felt playing through Goodbye Volcano High. It is a similar style of a bunch of complicated, messy people trying to deal with their feelings when they know the end is coming. And I am apparently a sucker for that as a genre. Apparently, that is just a thing that I find deeply satisfying. But both of them, I think do that whole thing of, you go through a lot of the stages of grief with this film. Like, there are moments where it's going to reinforce, kind of bleak feelings. There are going to be times where it reinforces that sort of calm of acceptance. It really does go through that whole spectrum of ways that you might feel about the scariest times in the world, and I think it does those very well, even if it was one of those things where we finished it and I was like, I need to just sit for a bit, because anything I put on after, like, too close after this is just gonna feel really pointless.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna feel really frivolous to put on just some YouTube video. I'm like, I need a bit of a buffer from what has happened.
Yes.
This was not a be playing Deep Rock Survivors while we watch film.
No,
this was a put that down and pay attention.
It's quite emotionally draining if you're not ready for it. I don't know why, just something floated back into my head the other day. I think because I heard one of the songs that happens right near the end of the film recently, and I was like, I feel like watching that film again. And yeah, it was basically exactly as I remembered it, and I apparently had less reason to worry than I had thought. There was a period when I was watching older films that I had enjoyed a while ago, and a lot of them turned out to be like, oh yeah, now that I watch it with, like, a slightly more understanding of the world eyes, and, slightly more educated, I realised that actually this film is terrible, and a lot of the people in it are also awful, so, yeah. But yeah, this one was a good one, and I enjoyed it, and, yeah, beautiful, bizarre, silly, very emotionally draining, but yeah. Enjoyed it. That's Seeking a Friend for the End of the World.
Yeah.
Have we got anything else?
I think that's basically it for me. Anything else for you?
That's it for me.
Well then, time for this.
Hey Laura.
Yes?
We've got a new sponsor.
Who's our new sponsor?
Well, stay with me on this.
Okay.
.lol.net is the sponsor.
Oh!
So, have you ever had an idea that's a bit wild and a bit out there and a bit zany?
No, one of those ones where it's like, it's gonna sound stupid, but, like, hear me out. It'll make sense when I get to the end of it.
You need to listen to the first 20 episodes of this particular thought, and then it gets really good after that.
Exactly. Right, you've nailed it, yes.
So, what if there was an app where you could send a message to a friend, and they will not be able to turn it off, or stop listening to it, or look away, or not pay attention until the message is read out, and they'll get to the end. You can guarantee they will have heard the whole thing, rather than just going, too wild. No, it'll never work. Like, within the first few sentences.
Exactly. Look, I know the opening sentence of this start with, a pitch. Like, I'm having to go on a whole backstory about some piece of media you haven't seen to make this make sense. But I promise, once I've explained to you those 3 obscure anime, you're going to understand what I'm trying to get at here.
Right. You know Jello. You know that Jello can come in various colours. You know that elephants exist. Stay with me here.
I'm staying with you because of the app.
Exactly, because of the app. What if 12-ton Jellyphants, if you will.
I mean, I wasn't with you until you said
rainbow-coloured Jellyphants.
You said rainbow Jellyphants. I'm in now.
Right.
I wasn't with you for most of it, but I stuck with you, and then you said rainbow Jellyphants, and now I'm in.
Right, exactly. So then stay with me on this .lol.net. Enter the code Q&PS episode 295. Promo code. Stay with me on this code. And you can get the app for free. Ooh, free app. Just free. You don't have... that was it. I hope you stayed with me on that, because...
just about.
By doing so, you have got the free app for free. Well, I mean... Inside the boardroom of Supremacy Software.
Hi. So, we got people bugging us again.
Solemn JPEG.
I mean, if we're gonna solemn JPEG this, we gotta workshop it.
Right.
So, people have been talking about a word I don't like recently.
Right.
They've been talking about preservation. Blah, blah, blah.
Like jams?
No, like, I own my game once, I want to own it forever. I want to make sure I can play it a million years from now. I want to make sure that if I own the game, I always own it, blah, blah, blah,
Well, how
blah,
are we going to sell them the same game again on their newest version of the same console?
Exactly. You know, planned obsolescence is, just part of the gig. But,
right, we planned that.
People are going like, make a DRM-free version, I know, right?
Oh my god.
On PC, make a version where I, can just boot it up a million years from now and it'll still work, blah, 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 blah. And... obviously, I fucking hate that idea. I think that's terrible.
Right.
So, I've been working on a way to try and pitch this, pitch some other way of doing things.
Right.
So here's what I'm working on. Let me know if you think this works.
Okay.
You want game preservation. You want games kept safe and, in an environment where no one can change who controls access to the game.
Right.
You want it so that whoever owns the game owns it forever. You agree that that's the best way to preserve a game, right?
Right.
Person who owns it forever.
Right.
So, what better way to preserve games than us keeping the game safe by limiting your ownership of it?
Right.
By which I mean you don't own it, you just own a license, we own the game, and we own it forever.
You get a license to our vault.
Exactly.
And then it is preserved forever.
Exactly. We will preserve it in our collection forever, so that we can strip mine it and re-release it over and over and over again.
Exactly.
Right? I think that's better than them preserving it.
Right.
That's
they might lose it in like a house move or something.
Exactly. That's relying on an individual to preserve it.
Yeah.
We are a corporation with lawyers and stuff.
Right.
Surely we're better equipped to keep it safe.
Yeah, I mean, I know, I am.
I would trust me more than them. They're poor.
Yeah, I mean, they're poor. I mean, any good thing could happen. They could have everything repossessed, and then who preserves it? Not them.
Not them.
Not them. No.
Us. We keep it.
We are fucking geniuses.
I know.
And gods of preservation.
Hell yeah.
So, what have you put in your ears?
I put a couple of songs in my ears that I hadn't heard before, so I've got a couple of songs I can talk about. I listened to a track called Cracker Shot by a band called Q-Bomb. It's a sort of rock track with a fast chiptune sound running through it, and a quite heavy vocal line that goes very sort of like growly, like metal in places, but that keeps some melody up, some of the melody with some like. It's got a bit of an upbeat sound that is helped by the presence of things like xylophone and triangle sounds that will occasionally, alongside the chiptune, stop the sound of it being too heavy.
Okay.
It is an interesting track that mixes sounds quite well. On the other end of the spectrum, I listened to a track called I Wanna Die by Teenage Bottle Rocket. And here's what I can say about it. It sure is a song about feeling like you want to die, but it's maybe the most danceable, like, fast-paced rock track that I have heard in a while. I want to skank at triple speed to it.
Okay.
I want to knees up, knees up at double time to this.
Pick it up.
It has an incredibly danceable guitar riff that I really, really want to dance out my angst to. Like, it is so weirdly catchy for a song about wishing you were dead. It is... I don't know how to feel about it, but it's very stuck in my head.
Okay.
And I listened to a track called Once More for the Ocean by a band called Slothrust. A very ethereal sort of femme rock track about feeling like everyone is taking too many pieces of you and finding a space of your own in the void to just heal for a while away from people picking bits away of what you are. Really, really neat track. Very, very interesting one I want to go back to.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of bits of music I listened to this week. What about you? What have you listened to?
I've not listened to a huge amount, but I figured that it's been a couple of weeks. And I would mention again that we've been listening to the Magnus Protocol.
We have. This is the sequel to the Magnus Archives, that long-running series of horror short stories with a through line, and this is a sort of sequel to that.
A sort of sequel, yes.
This, however many episodes we're in now,
this week is the 7th.
There is considerably more plot outside of the horror stories in this than at least early Magnus had.
Yes, because early Magnus was very much person recording story. Very occasionally, for a little tiny bit at the beginning or end, you might get some sort of explanation about how the archivist came to be here, or the fact they're unhappy with how untidy things are. But it was usually like a minute or so, maybe, of just like offhanded comment.
Some of these Magnus Protocol episodes, I would say more of the episode is office politics than it is the short form horror story of the week.
Yes.
Like, sometimes that is less than half the episode.
Yes, it seems to be more meta than plot. If that is a decent way to describe it. It's been interesting. It hasn't felt like it's doing the same thing as Magnus Archives.
Agreed.
The stories that we have heard have felt unusual, bizarre, maybe even delving into the realms of like creepypasta-ish, but haven't felt like that very often haven't felt like the first person experiences of experiencing fears and terrifying things happening.
Yeah. There has been a very different, slightly more chaotic nature to the stories.
Yes.
And I think we're starting to see little bits crop in of that might be an element from the Magnus Archives coming up in an unexpected way in some of these stories. And I can maybe have some hypothesizing about what is making these horror stories different from the ones in the Magnus Archives.
Yes, although I wouldn't talk about that for fear of spoiling.
No, I'm not going to say anything
later. Magnus Archives.
I'm not going to say anything specific about that, but I think we've got enough of it now that I'm starting to have guesses about why these stories feel a little different.
Yeah. I have theories, and I am looking forward to sitting down with our other Magnus enthused friends and doing a bit of theory crafting and talking and excitedly getting on with that. I think so far I've been like a bit unsure. Like I've been interested in the characters. There seemed like some of the office politics seems to be like power struggle type stuff. Some of it seems to be like we've been doing extracurricular activities, running our own businesses on the side we shouldn't talk about. And then this week's episode happened, and I do not know what to think. I have so many thoughts. I think by virtue of the fact that some of it has been written by guest writers, that it hasn't felt quite as consistent as Magnus Archives did.
Yeah.
I imagine that there is some framework that they have to work in to work with the meta plot.
It might be too early for this, but I have a thought that's been sat in my head a little bit about the way that this feels and comparing it to something else. And I'm not saying this is the case. It's reminding me a little of when the Adventure Zone finished the Balance campaign and started doing future campaigns. And one thing that happened there was the Adventure Zone didn't start as this big, grand adventure. It built there over time, but there was a feeling of trying to jump straight back to that finale point at the start of the story with their next campaign.
Yes.
And I have a little thought of maybe that might be a little of what's happening with the Magnus Protocol. That built up to its bigger, wider plot very gradually over time. It gave the core horror time to breathe before it built the rest of its world. And this does feel a little like it's trying to jump straight to the amount of outer plot that was present by the end of a very long story.
Yeah, agreed.
And
like, they've even admitted that the first series of Magnus, like, people have talked about, like, what was this related to, what was that related to, because by virtue of how it ties in with the meta plot. And, like, Johnny said, like, it was supposed to be this, but it was very early on, and we didn't quite have everything where it would later get to. And although, like, the ending was set as a target nebulously from the beginning, and the length and so forth was all set from the beginning, things did change and mould slightly, and as they got better at crafting, and as certain people came on and off of the show, and as just ideas just generally floated in, and that did obviously change things a little bit and improve the way they write and get more to that. But I think you're right that this does feel like it's trying to do, maybe not like final season, but it is trying to do a much higher start point.
Yes.
Which is difficult for onboarding for us.
Yes. It's tricky because it's requiring a lot of... There's a very high density of, like, most episodes have, like, introduced a new character or a new thing. Like, it feels like every episode there's something new to keep track of in what already kind of started as a lot to take in.
Yes, because in the first episode, because I've re-listened to most of the first episode today, we've got 3 people talking at the beginning who, obviously, we get names for.
Yeah.
We get 2 sort of, like, manager-type characters that are going on in the background. We've got the new starter, who I guess is supposed to be the audience surrogate for a lot of it. We've got an extra character who's like a little bit separate from everything else. Then we've got obviously the 2 short stories that we get in that pilot episode, and then by the second or third episode, we've got more office politics going on between certain characters. We've got other people that just seem to have completely vanished and may not be heard of again for a while. We've got all of the stuff about the names of the computer voices that are randomly given, which again, difficult to link in because there is a sort of nonsenseness to that and frivolity based on, flippancy rather, I should say, based on how a certain character treats a lot of that stuff. And then, I think the end of episode 6, a whole new character is just like, oh, I'm starting as well. I was like, there's already so much going on, and I haven't even managed to, like, make thoughts about how certain stories are connected, let alone how all these characters are connected.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. But, yes, fascinating. I love the sound design, and I feel like this is going to be maybe a hard one to recommend to people. I feel like in years to come, it'll be like, yeah, you'll probably want to get, like, 20 episodes for the first season. But once you've got all of that packed in, it'll be really good. Because I have no doubt that it will come to be a really good thing. But this has been a difficult onboarding. More difficult than a lot of that sort of shows.
It's one of those, I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt because of how good the Magnus Archives ended up. I'm giving it more leeway than I would something from a new creator, probably. In terms of the being willing to wait out certain things and see how they level out a bit.
Yeah, I feel like almost like, I think if this was any other creator, this is the sort of thing I might have gone, you know what, I'll just wait until like there's 10, 20 episodes out and I'll just binge the lot and see what happened from there. But as it is, I kickstarted it, so I've got early access and ad-free, so I want to enjoy all that. But yes, enjoying it so far with caveats. Did you listen to anything else?
No, that was it for me.
Well then,
Time for this.
Hi, you the Dales?
Oh, yes, hi.
Yes, well, thank you for coming along today. We've got this beautiful property to show off. And, obviously you've wandered through the woods to get here. I'm sure you've seen how beautiful the surroundings are here.
Oh, lovely location.
Very desirable residence. And here, of course, we have the development here in the middle of the woods. Beautiful, as you see, a beautiful garden here. Quite. The lovely fences there. Lots of natural wildflowers going there. We don't have any lawns here in the woodland forest development. Beautiful, spacious living room here. Very, very lovely, cozy. All the latest designs very well insulated, so you don't have to worry too much about heating. It's not difficult to do so. And you'll notice there's just a warm sensation, just a warm smell as you walk into the house. And then obviously you have it's all a single level. We don't have any stairs, obviously, so that we're not interacting too much with the trees up there. So obviously you can keep the natural skyline looking from above. Obviously we have here we have an extensive double bedroom, another double bedroom on the other side. They're both with ensuite bathrooms. The separate toilet over here for anyone who needs when someone's in the shower, and it also saves anyone walking through the bedrooms there. We have a lovely kitchen space, all open plan over here. Naturally, we have all of the usual white goods that we'd expect, all pre-installed in here, and lovely. And it's the whole place is going for just under £15,000.
Oh, I mean that sounds wonderful on the price range. I do have to ask about the smell. It is a lovely smell.
It is a lovely smell.
But looking at those walls, is the place made of gingerbread?
You think perhaps that the gingerbread housing development of the Enchanted Woods might be made of gingerbread?
Yes.
Yes, it's made of gingerbread. Definitely gingerbread.
The concern I have is I might eat the walls, and that's probably not good for structural integrity.
Oh no, that's fine. It's all enchanted. It's all magical, so it'll just grow back. It'll be fine. Doesn't go stale.
When can we move in?
We'll take it. And a glass of milk. Hey, wake up.
Uh-huh.
Earth just got patch notes.
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Check it out, right?
Okay, right.
There's new weather types.
Uh-huh.
Warm snow.
Okay.
Laughing mist.
Cool.
And chill out rise, which I'm told is a sort of early morning weather that's just like really calm and relaxing and just really nice to be in.
Okay.
Wealth has been rebalanced.
Sure. In a good way?
Yeah, like all of the money's been like more equally distributed amongst all the people. There's now like a solid cap on how much you can have.
Oh.
So you just can't have like too much. No more billionaire not possible anymore.
Ah.
Billionaire been completely written out. That's pretty good. Right-wing political levels have been reset to -2 from -2,000.
Oh.
And left-wing political levels have been reset to +2 from -200.
Oh.
Okay, capybaras with wings. Crude oil is no longer suitable as a fuel source.
Oh.
So that maybe will help the environmental stuff.
I guess so.
The oceans have been reset to version 1.1.5. I'm not actually sure what that means, but that does seem to be like a rollback on the whole destruction of the oceans thing.
That sounds like a positive. I can't imagine it's not.
Hopefully there's less poop in it. They've re-implemented the Fae peoples, added dragons.
Okay.
Trans people have got their powers back. Apparently, previous versions kept reporting that we had various powers, Like, it was being reported like, oh, the trans people, they're doing this and that, they've got the power to do this and that thing. But actually, now that's been corrected, and we do have, in fact...
Oh, those powers are functioning now.
We have all of those powers that they claim to be.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
That's good. Colonized nations are being reset, and the recent occupiers are being moved to a new 8th continent, just like all huddled together.
Oh.
All of the, like, imperialistic nations living on stolen lands, just all wedged together on a weird 8th continent, just together now. And they've added a select screen for additional ear and tail customization for humans, dolphins, and Bigfoots.
Well, I guess that's an announcement in and of itself, I suppose.
Yeah, I didn't know dolphins would be big into, like, cat ears and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know what I want to see more of?
What do you want to see more of?
Social Justice Warriors.
Social Justice Warriors?
Yeah.
Right, Harry. Right, Barry. How you doing? Oh, mate, I am tired in ways I cannot fully explain.
Oh, yeah, agreed.
Yeah, you doing all right?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Been thinking about things I think about a lot, but in new combinations, you know.
Right, yeah.
I've been, you know, we're both in agreement about universal basic income being
yes.
like a necessary good that the world needs to get to.
Needed.
Exactly.
Until such time as we, completely remove capitalism as a concept.
Exactly.
UBI.
Exactly. You know, at least like an amount you can survive on as a minimum that just everyone gets without having to earn it. You know,
Absolutely.
We both stay in the same place on that.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't, need more excuses to be in favour of universal basic income. But I was thinking of a new reason to be in favour of universal basic income.
Oh, do so.
It's a bit of a roundabout one, but I've been seeing a renewed set of worries about AI art recently.
Right.
Because, there was that quite scary initially seeming new AI video generation tool that was doing the rounds that, it now seems... the company that made it owns a stock image and stock video library, and it sure seems like a lot of its very impressive results it's spitting out are actually just slightly tweaked stock footage they already own.
Right, yeah.
But, that aside, for a moment, as is continually happening at the moment with AI art, another wave of people going, oh god, am I going to lose my creative career to machines automating shit?
Yeah.
And... there are many things we need to do about, regulating AI stuff in the in all spaces.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it in relation to, what we do to, ensure that human-created art can still continue to exist in a world where, AI stuff exists.
Yeah.
And this is why I was certainly about the universal basic income, because, if there's anything that's, gonna help humanity to make art that's the weird kind of art that AI is never going to make. Because, AI is all about predicting, what's the most reasonable what's the most reasonable thing to go here.
Right.
It's not designed to make, weird shit that's a
not
bit
going to get your Hieronymus Bosch Garden of Earthly Delights.
Exactly. And I'm like, universal basic income, basically the best way of us humans having enough time to take the risks to make your weird fucking art, to do the art shit that might not fucking work out, but you're going to spend 3 days trying it anyway shit.
Yeah, the sort of creative endeavours that are not for any purpose, just for the joy of creation, willing to be a bit more experimental, willing to, risk failure, because it's not, for any it's not, potentially quote-unquote wasted time that's not generating income that you need to, keep a roof over your head or keep your medical bills paid and so forth. Yeah.
I think maybe even more so than that, it's not even just, the kind of art that you can't do because it's not productive. It's like, let's say you've got time to make some art that doesn't have to be for making money, while still existing under the constraints of current capitalism, you're like, well, I only have so long to work on my art in my own time.
Yeah.
It seems like a better use of my time to do what I know works already, and to practice the stuff that's not going to feel like I went down a weird left path and it went nowhere.
Yeah.
That's a waste of my free time. Universal basic income gives you, would give you a bit of room to do the, this is my leisure time, and I'm still going to use it in an unpredictable way that might might feel like a waste of my leisure time, but
I would
that's
like
okay.
to go fuck around and find out.
Exactly. I would like to be able to spend 3 weeks doing really getting into something that might turn out to be a complete dead end artistically,
Yeah.
but that's okay because I didn't die during that time.
Exactly, I think, that is important in art, it's important in science, I think, having that freedom to just try things and, having, without any financial pressures.
And you know what else? Having time to just do nothing and sit in front of a blank page and not feel like you need to just start trying to create, where you can go, I might just sit and look at this page for a while today, and if nothing ends up on the page, that's fine.
Yeah, there's no deadline attached to it.
Exactly. And those are the kind of things that will, ensure that humanity can do the thing, has time to do the artistic things that, automation is just never really going to be suited for.
Yeah, and it's also perfect, for nurturing creativity by virtue of, just letting people dream and wander and try something unusual that comes into their head rather than seeking eternally for something that will be popular or will be rewarded in some way beyond just the reward of creation.
Yeah.
Fancy hug, mate?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Good hug, mate. Good hug.
Good luck.
Right, I think go and have a little nap.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
Nice.
So, Laura,
Yes?
where can people find your things on the internet that you do that are awesome and good and enjoyable?
You can find my stuff on the internet at Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere. Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Patreon, that's the one that pays the bills, Blue Sky, Mastodon. Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere. Go find me on a thing. I'm probably doing stuff there. What about you? Where are you on the internet?
I do not have the unified branding, but I do have a link tree. It's linkter.ee/Janiac. Janiac. You can find all of the music I make, the things I write, all the things I do, all available, the t-shirts I've designed. And you can help support all the things I do at patreon.com/stonedmonkeyradio. For as little as $1 a month, it makes it all worth doing. So Laura, I think that's everything. Will you sing us out, please?
Until next time, be a stranger.